Hello and welcome to Series 2 of Heavenly Minded. Yes, that's right. We are back with another round of great guests who are going to take us on a journey and discuss what it means to be in the world but not of it and what that looks like in day-to-day life. My name's Chloe Wilson. I'm a presenter on UCB2. I want to take you back to about 2 or 3 years ago. One of my friends sent me a reel on Instagram. I open it up and there's a lion emoji, and it starts talking to me. And it's the lion that Daniel fought. Then a pig comes onto the screen talking about the miracles of Jesus, and I'm going, what is this? But it was fabulous, and I then discovered Hills of Hope. Hilary Phillips, who is a social media influencer. She takes different parts of the Bible, makes them accessible and funny as well. She's quite the comedian. Her videos are so worth watching. And she joins us on this first episode of Series 2. And I'm so excited to bring you this conversation, to think about social media and how we can be using it for the glory of God, when it's so easy to get ourselves into that scrolling spiral. How do we get out of that? And how do we use social media to make the good news of Jesus known? Well, Hilary, welcome to Heavenly Minded. It is such a treat to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a blessing to be here.
So could you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now in terms of social media? Because by my last update, and I'm sure it's constantly changing, you have 500,000 followers on TikTok. You have over 60,000 followers on Instagram. Did you just wake up one day and go, that's what I want to do, I want to be an influencer, or was it a completely different story?
You know, I wouldn't say it's a completely different story, but it wasn't on my mind to say, oh, I'm going to be the biggest influencer. My heart has always been for entertainment, performance, creating. So since I was little, I've been involved in theater and choir, and just part of my personality has always been just wanting to bring people joy and inspire them through creativity. So when 2020 hit and everything shut down, where everything really started for me was everyone was cooped in. And what I noticed was there were so many people driven by fear. They were so stressed and worried. And I was like, Lord, people need to hear about you. But when 2020 came around, my mindset wasn't, I'm going to create content so that I can become popular online. My heart was, I need to create content that will reach people who have no access to others right now, who are really stripped of their community, who are anxious and overwhelmed. So I just started making silly videos about Jesus, falling into pools. I was doing goofy skits, talking about the Lord and the hope of God. And then I shared my testimony. So this was about April of 2020, made a testimony video. And that was my first video that ever went viral and blew up. And I was shocked. I was like, what? Lord, what are you doing? And it was a little nerve-wracking because you're vulnerable when you're sharing your testimony, right? But it was great to see how blessed people were. The word even talks about it, how people, are overcome by the power of our testimony. And so seeing God move in that way really is what started everything. And from there, I started to see rapid growth on TikTok. And then because of the growth on TikTok, it transferred to Instagram. So here I am now.
That is amazing. And the fact that it was your testimony, I was expecting you to say it was just like a random video that was a funny skit or like a trick or something like that, because sometimes it's those funny comedic elements that can kind of blow up TikTok. Or that's beautiful. I love that. And the way that God has used that to grow your following, I think is wonderful. Do you think that there can still be a stereotype, I mean, maybe amongst the older generation, for example, that actually social media, well, it's not really that great, it's quite serious, and it may not necessarily be of any use? Do you think there's still that stereotype today?
Definitely, I do. However, some of that I feel is just related to tradition and people not necessarily feeling comfortable with it. It might be foreign to them. So older generations see it as something else. Whereas for me, I see it as an amazing evangelism tool. In no other time in history will we be able to communicate with this many people in 1 minute, 1 minute of your time. And there's unlimited potential of who can see it, what God can do with it. And so I believe the disciples would, if they were in this time, they probably would be on social media too, preaching the gospel, reaching the lost, doing what they can. I'm sure Paul would have had a really controversial page.
I would love to see Peter, of all of them, I'd love to see Peter on Instagram and TikTok. Can you imagine the videos that he would do? He would be one of those who posts something and then deletes it pretty much straight away because he regrets. He doesn't think before he speaks. So he posts something and then, but someone's already managed to screen grab it and then all of a sudden it blows up. I can imagine him being that kind of person.
Absolutely. And their receipts, when he tries to deny Jesus, it'd be very different. Be like, oh, really? We have the receipts, Peter, right here. You're talking about Jesus.
So let's just talk about your actual videos for a moment and the content that's within them, because I can't take credit for coming across your social media account. I have to give all the credit to one of my friends who just knew that I needed a little bit of a laugh, a bit of a giggle. And she sent me one of your videos where you use the iPhone. They're called Memojis. I think that's how you say it. I'm like so not with it when it comes to that kind of technological word. But it's where you can record your face and it transforms it into like almost like a cartoon. But you use these different characters to tell Bible stories. Tell us why you decided to make these videos. Where did that inspiration come from?
Well, I wish I had some profound story on how it all started. But no, it was actually just me messing around in my kitchen one night. I was just diddle-daddling on my phone and I was playing with those cartoon things, right? And when I saw the pig, just immediately it popped into my mind the story of all of the swine jumping off the cliff when the demons went into them. And so I just pushed record and was like, girl, you're not going to believe this. My friends was up on this cliff and all of a sudden, girl, they was jumping off. You know, I just started playing and I sent it to one of my friends. I was like, girl, look at this. And she was cracking up and was like, you have to post that. I said, girl, I can't post it. That is too weird. That's bizarre. And she's like, no, post it. I said, okay. And so I did. And I was actually really surprised by how entertained people were by it. You know, I was entertained. I was having fun doing it, but it really opened my eyes. And then from there, the Lord started to show me how it could be a great tool to show how approachable the Lord really is. One of the reasons I love adding comedy into my content is because there's a stereotype that Christians are just dull and boring and God is just like, ah. But he's so awesome. And it's a way of being true to the word and not watering down the word, but also showing that there's life in God and you can be yourself and be playful and fun while being Christian.
And I'm a firm believer that God has got a perfect sense of humor, because the amount of times something has happened and I've just had to laugh and go, God, was that you? Whether it's teaching me a lesson or something's happened and I can just almost feel him smiling and laughing. And, you know, I don't think that the Bible was ever intended to be boring, because the content's not boring at all, is it?
Not at all. God created humor. And so it's this idea of what he's made. Sometimes the enemy perverts it. And so we start to associate it as bad. But everything God has made is good. And we can use all of that to glorify him and to inspire others.
And that leads in really nicely as we kind of go back to social media as such, because there are some wonderful things that happen on social media on a daily basis. There was a story that I saw earlier on, and it was about a little girl who wasn't able to go and pick up one of these like certificates that she got at school because she fell ill and her health wasn't very good. And so her mum posted about it and said, can we just like cheer her up, expecting maybe a few comments. And thousands of people sent her pictures and like online certificates and were congratulating her. And that's when I look at social media and go, that's what it was intended for, to bring people together. But then on the flip side, we often hear horrific stories that come out of social media. And Hilary, I wonder, have you kind of experienced that side yourself? Because it can be so easy to, well, I mean, I don't think I've ever posted something negative on social media, and it's my prayer that I never will. But there are people who troll and who intentionally put negative comments on different posts and videos. Have you experienced that kind of stuff?
I have. I think that what I've experienced isn't as extreme as some others maybe have. What I have learned is the power of the block button, the beauty of delete.
Yes.
And just not paying mind to people who choose to come onto my page and try and spew hatred or tension. Now, obviously, I love when people have discussion, but if it's to the point where somebody's attacking another person in the comments or just really coming with a lot of hostility, I'm really quick to just block them or delete the comments, because to me, it's why entertain that and why create that when people are not coming here for that. There's plenty of content on the internet that people go to for drama. This is not that space. So I really do like trying to create a safe space for those who just want to have that pick me up and have that life-giving experience and conversation. So yeah, that's what I do. It's just, bye, Felicia. We do not have time. You've got to go.
I love that. And I think, you know, sometimes we can be a little bit oversensitive, can't we? I'm so guilty of this. I'm a very, very sensitive person. And if I don't get a certain amount of, I mean, look, I don't have very many followers. If I don't get a particular number of likes, if I don't get a particular number of views, or even if someone comments something and I'm going, I don't know how I feel about that. And sometimes we can be oversensitive. So I like that you've got that approach of going, well, actually, I'm not going to let that affect me. I'm going to kind of rise above it. Is that fair to say?
It is. And it's not something that just came naturally, per se. Naturally is a lot of what you were talking about. Contemplating and wondering, did I do something wrong? Do I need to say something different? Should I explain myself? And really what being on social media for these past 2 years has taught me, and interacting with various people, I've learned boundaries in a new way. I've learned that while I am creating content for people to enjoy, ultimately I'm doing this for God. And if the Lord gives me peace about something, that's it. That's it. I don't have to justify. I don't have to explain. Now, there are times where maybe somebody will say something and my eyes aren't opened and I realize, oh, you know what? They make a good point. And then in my private life, I talk to the Lord about it if there are some things that I need to contemplate and consider. But one of my boundaries that I really hold to is I don't want to allow the opinions of people to shift me from doing what God is wanting me to do. Because when you're in this space, you are literally opening yourself up to anyone and everyone's opinion. And I can't put the same weight on all of it. So I really have certain people that I will check in with. A lot of people, you know, Christianese term will say accountability partners. It's not like that. It's more, if I do have a question about if I posted something, if it's a little on edge or maybe I should delete it, I do have people I trust who I value their opinion and will make changes based off of that at times.
Well, that's incredibly helpful to have, isn't it? Those people who we can turn to and who we can trust with stuff like that. And, you know, as you say, people call it accountability partners, but being accountable to people and I guess to the people who are following you as well, because you've got a lot of followers. And so although you're not going to be pleasing everybody because that's impossible, we're human and we don't like everything that we see and all of that kind of stuff. I guess in a way you are still in a quite high profile scenario and there will be people who I guess will be looking up to you.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, I just see myself as just me, you know, and living my life, doing my thing. And yes, I recognize that there are a lot of people who are engaged. I'm so blessed by it. But I have to remind myself at times that there's a responsibility that comes with that and how to honor it. A funny example, right, of where I made a mistake and I was like, Lord, I jacked up a little bit. You know, I I wanted to branch out my content a little bit, right? I was like, oh, let me diversify just a little. I want to do some outfit videos. And so I had one where I had these boots. They were like these thigh-high boots that I thought were so cute, right? And so I made this little video. I was doing this little strut walk, and I got a call from my dad. He's like, hey, I saw your most recent video. I said, yeah, what'd you think? He was like, oh, it's not really on brand, is it? I was like, what? And he gave me a man's perspective. He was like, look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I know you're a grown woman, but those boots, they send a message. All right, as a man, this is how we talk. He's like, as a man, I will just let you know. All right, as your father, those boots, they made for walking in something else. Okay. He's like, I think you should take it down. And so I did. Wow. I did. I immediately, while I was on the phone with him, deleted the post. And then I made a story about it, saying, y'all, forgive me for my last post. I wasn't intending to be a thirst trap or throw anybody off, and I was surprised because in my comments on that video, I was not getting negative feedback. But when I made that story post, I started to have certain men that follow me and say, I was thrown off by that video. He's like, but this makes me respect you even more, that you realized and listened to your dad. And it was just a really cool learning opportunity for me, that you can show people that sometimes you're going to post something that maybe you shouldn't post. And that you're human and we're not perfect. And yeah, it was funny. I was cracking up.
But I love that you talked about how you were able to be real and how you were able to be honest, because sometimes on social media, well, I say sometimes, a lot of the time, there's lots of filters and there are different effects that can alter the best parts of our lives. So our social media accounts become the best bits rather than real life. Do you think that is dangerous?
I definitely think it's dangerous because it breeds discontentment in our everyday lives. And I noticed that the more you're using social media, the more likelihood there is to start to question parts of your life. I've experienced it. I've yet to come across a person who engages in social media that hasn't had moments where they've seen other people's lives and thought, what am I not doing in mine? Or what should I be doing in mine? And that's very natural. But I do think that without healthy boundaries, without an understanding of yourself, if you lack a sense of self-worth, that ultimately you can start to live your life simply for approval of other people online. And we do that outside of the internet, right? You have people that before the internet was even a thing, before social media existed, we would do that. We would try to adjust parts of our image and our life to get a response that we want. And people do that to varying degrees, but with social media, it's made it so easy to change how you're perceived without having to actually look at your heart and adjust your character or get to the real root of stuff. It's so superficial at times. So that's the danger I see. When people are being authentic, though, when their real life lines up with their online life, I think that can be healthy. It can be good because you're allowing people to get insight to different things and maybe they wouldn't have exposure to. But yeah, the danger for me is definitely on the user, not so much on the consumer.
Well, we kind of picked up on there that social media can easily consume us. We can become a little bit obsessed, as we said, with the filters and, creating that online identity. And that's what we're kind of looking towards. But social media can also consume a lot of our time and our energy. And I'm so guilty of this. I'll sit on the sofa. Oh, I've got a notification. And before I know it, half an hour is gone. And I'm going, I've literally done nothing. I've sat and I've scrolled through so many different things and I haven't got through my to-do list. How do you, as a content creator and an influencer, how do you manage your time on social media?
One of the things that I practice is in the morning, not opening social media, not even dealing with any of that. I have my Bible time. might go to the gym, I'll open Spotify, and pretty much that's what I limit myself to. Otherwise, I get sucked in. If I start in the morning, it's like I get sucked in, and all of a sudden the time rolls by. So for me, it's just had to be those kind of boundaries, really, of don't even open it, girl. You already know you're still growing in self-control in that area. Okay.
So we've talked a lot about social media. We've talked, of course, this is what this whole episode is about. So, of course, we're going to be talking about social media, but we talked about all of your different content and how social media does consume us at times, as well as our time, our energy there. And I love that you have that element of self-control. And it is hard. I mean, I've tried to do that, particularly in the mornings, and I've found, okay, I'll just turn my phone over. I've now got an alarm clock, so I'm not tempted to use my phone instead. So like little tweaks like that I found have been very helpful. But I'll turn my phone over and just double check that, there isn't a message from my mum going, you need to call me right now kind of thing, or there's an emergency. But yeah, in terms of social media notifications, I will not open it until I've done my quiet time and had my cup of tea as well, because then I know I'll be in a better frame of mind. But there are lots of little things that we can do. But I was thinking earlier on about what the Bible has to say about these kind of things. And it can be a bit tricky because social media wasn't around in that time. But Jesus said in Luke chapter 9, verse 23, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. And I love that verse because in a way we can kind of apply that to social media, being followers of Jesus, followers in this day and age. And it's a very loose, tenuous connection there. But following Jesus and taking up our cross daily, that is to include every area of our life. So, of course, social media comes into that. So, Hilary, how do you take up your cross daily and follow Jesus when you're posting on TikTok or Instagram? You kind of touched on it earlier, but would you kind of expand on that a bit more for us?
Outside of social media, my life's goal is to live for the Lord and to love him because he loves me. And as I grow in knowing how much he loves me, I just want to lay down my life to him. And I recognize that every day he's going to teach me, build me, do something to change how I perceive things. And so when it comes to posting, my goal is to just be as authentic to who I am in my walk with God as possible, and showing up by praying a lot of times, especially if it's something that maybe I'm touching on something that could be a little more controversial or for somebody who isn't as mature in their walk, maybe could get confused, being prayerful and asking the Lord to show me what to say and how do I speak, Lord? Well, especially with my things that aren't comedic, right? The comedic stuff, I like the videos with Charisse the pig and all of that. I look at the biblical stories. And so I'm basically just giving a biblical account from a different perspective. And to me, I just surrender all of it to the Lord. I pray for everyone that follows me. I thank the Lord for entrusting me with those people because that's how I see it. I don't just see it as, oh, these people are just following me. I see it as the Lord is drawing them and that through the content, something is happening that they feel engaged. And so I thank God for that because I don't take it lightly. I see it as a ministry in every way. And so I try to treat it as such.
And I love that in everything that you've talked about, there has been a real humility and a modesty. And, that is something that we can all aspire to, whether we are content creators or like me with my 200 followers and posting random updates of what I'm doing in radio, or whether it's a mum sipping a cup of tea and posting a funny quote that she saw or a picture of the kids. We all need to have that awe and reverence and prayerful attitude no matter where we're at in social media. And so my final question to you is kind of tying this all together, and we've touched on it throughout this entire episode. How can we be heavenly minded on social media?
We have to be heavenly minded outside of social media. If you're only trying to do it on social media, I believe that opens the door for something that's not actually based in who you are in Christ. So I believe that our walk with the Lord, when nobody's watching, no friends, no person, just you and the Lord, that intimate space with God, when you are humble before him and you ask him to just do what ever he wants to and really surrender before him, he will renew our minds. We know that through the word, our minds are renewed, right? We know that we're transformed in Christ, that we're new creatures in him. And the more transparent and authentic we can be with God, the easier it is for us to be transparent and authentic with other people. Because if we can't even be transparent with God, who knows all, who sees all, who is not surprised by our stuff, then obviously we're going to have that much more difficulty doing that with individuals who don't know all our stuff. So when I look at social media, remembering the heart of God, that he came for the one. If there was only one of us that needed salvation, he would have still gone to the cross, and it's not about how many are following or how little are following. It's just the fact that God is giving us an opportunity on social media to engage and connect, to share the talents and giftings, to move in our purpose and our calling, whatever that is, right? So our purpose is to glorify God, is to serve him. Our calling could be unique. You have people on social media who are not doing comedic content or creative things, but what they're doing is teaching people business techniques, or they're sharing their information about marketing and accounting, all these other things, right? It's a big learning space. So I believe that prayerfully asking God, if you do want to step into social media in any way, asking him how you can bring all that he's put in you to social media. Lord, how can I bring these things and do so in a way that will, one, glorify you and be true to you, but two, move in the calling that you've put in me, stuff that I'm already doing in my daily life. How can I do that in this space to empower other people?
Well, Hilary, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for your insight and for your humility as you've spoken about the work that you do. It's been so much fun having you on the podcast today, and I am going to be waiting and refreshing my page regularly and watching out for what the disciples would be like if they had an Instagram or TikTok account. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'll have to tag you in it and give you a shout out for the idea credit.
Thank you so much for joining us on Heavenly Minded.
Thank you so much.
Well, I still can't believe that we've just spoken to Charisse the pig. And if you still don't know what I'm going on about, check out Hilary's social media. You can find her on Instagram. She's at Hills of Hope. Or if you're a TikTok user, just type in What's Up Hill. But a huge thank you to Hilary for joining us on Heavenly Minded today. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying listening to Heavenly Minded. You can stay up to date with all of our other UCB podcasts via the UCB Player app. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back next week with another guest who is trying to work out how to stay heavenly minded.